Welcome to Michele.
Thank you so much. I can't talk about Scattered Stones without first talking about how River Stones came about. And I was really deaf, deafer than the post, and I had to have a hearing operation. And when I was coming out of the anaesthetic, I had the most amazing dream. It was so real that I could touch the wood panelling in the hotel walls in Skipper's Canyon, Long Gully in 1864. And so when I came to fully, I wrote the story outline down, and when I got home, I started to write the story. But I struggled, and I couldn't figure out why. And then I realised it was because I thought that the main character was Meg, the daughter, but her mother was such a strong character, such a strong personality, she was trying to take over, and she wanted to tell her story. So when I realised that, I thought, well, far be it from me to argue with Mary Healy, so I let her have her way. And then the story pretty much wrote itself. And I thought, when I'd finished it, I thought, I have just written a story in a time period I know nothing about, in a place I've never been to. That's all back to front. So the cheapest option was to get down to the library and do some research. And I did. And there were so many cool stories. It's like, ooh, how do you fit all the cool stories into the novel? But I wasn't supposed to. I had the story. I needed to know all that background information, but I had the story. So about a year later, I went and visited the place. Now, Skipper's Canyon is not for the faint-hearted. It's a pretty hairy ride. And I went with my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law, my nephew and myself, in my sister-in-law's tiny Suzuki Jeep, loaded to the gunnels with camping gear. And there's like a 3,000-foot drop this way. There is a crumbling rock face this way. There is one lane of a gravel road, and there could be a bus coming. There is nowhere to go. There are names like Hell's Gate, Devil's Elbow, and Dead Man's Gully for a reason. But we made it alive to where I'd set the novel in Long Gully. And when we got there, I knew immediately that one paragraph was going to have to change. Because I had set something happening by the river, but when we got to the remains of the hotel chimney, you could not see the river from the road. But my brother-in-law is very helpfully pacing out where you could have a liaison if you wanted one. And he's 6'7", he looks like John Cleese. So he's saying, if you're extremely determined and swinging from a vine like Tarzan, across the ravine, you could possibly make that happen. Well, since there were no 6'7" Tarzans in the story, I said, I'll rewrite that bit then, shall I? But that is the only thing that I needed to change. Everything else was how I dreamt it. So we went from there up to the branches, had a look around there, and then we went across the Skipper's Bridge and camped by Mount Urim Station. I'm so glad I got to see Mount Urim Station, because sadly it burnt to the ground in January 2018. We went and had a look at the Skipper's School and then the graveyard, and the graveyard was such a surreal experience because there were people's names that were similar to my character, or what they died of was similar to my characters, and it was kind of like the past was trying to speak to the present and say, remember us, we were here. So we camped the night in our tents, and the next day we set off to find the ghost town, Bullendale. It's a very good ghost town, because I haven't found it yet. We took the wrong turn at the start. I'm not good with directions or instructions, and we took the wrong turn at the start. We walked for 6 hours in the blazing sun. It was New Year's Eve. We crossed that river 80 times, at least 80 times, and I was convinced if we kept walking, we'd end up in Hokitika. So we turned back. And the only thing that got me that last kilometre back was thinking, I am one step closer to a glass of wine. One step closer to a glass of wine. So we made it back to our camp, and we decamped, and we headed down to Queenstown. We managed to see the New Year Inn and the fireworks, and then comatose. But when I got back to Auckland, I started to rewrite the story. Now, it's one thing to write a 100,000 word novel, it's another thing to rewrite the same novel 5 to 7 times. And about halfway through that process, an interesting thing happens. Your self-doubt goes from this big to about the size of a person sitting next to you, and you hear in your head, who's ever going to read this? Why are you wasting your time? This is rubbish, kind of thing in your head, and suddenly the vacuuming looks interesting. It's never looked interesting before, but now it is. And so I got bored and I thought, okay, well, I'll pick up something else and write something else. But fortunately we had a visiting guest speaker at our church, and his message was, the cemetery is full. He said, the cemetery is full of people who are full. You are given gifts and talents for a reason, and you're supposed to use them. You're supposed to die empty. Well, that was a kick in the pants I needed, because Riverstones was a gift. It was a dream, it was given to me, and gifts are meant to be shared. So I finished rewriting the novel. Now, during this time, the publishing industry had changed so significantly that the publishers weren't publishing anymore. But being a traditionalist, and because I didn't know what I was doing with self-publishing, I sent it to about 3 traditional publishers. And one of them came back and said, we publish one New Zealand author of one New Zealand historical per year. And I thought, wow, if a well-known New Zealand historical author submits their manuscript, it's going to be a long time before it's my year. I'm going to have to do this myself. Well, if I thought writing a book was difficult, for me, self-publishing was a bit of a mare. And because I didn't know what I was doing, I paid someone else a significant amount of money to do it for me. And I didn't enjoy the process. But finally, Riverstones was launched. It's a weird feeling launching a book, because it's kind of like walking outside with your underwear on the outside. You feel very vulnerable, open to criticism. I mean, not everybody's going to like what you've written, and, it's just like we don't all like the same flavour milkshake. But I've been very fortunate, and the feedback that I've had from people have been things like, I was up all night reading because I couldn't put it down, or your book made me cry, which I think that's just the coolest, because if you care enough about my character to cry for them, then they've become real for you, and I've done a good job. And I've had people tell me, that Mary Healy's a tartar, she needs taking down a peg or two. And I think, they're not real, right? But they have been real to me for probably about 7 years now. And I don't like to tell other people about those extra people in my head in case somebody turns up with a straitjacket to take me away. But that's how I want people to feel when they finish reading the book, is that they're going to miss these people. These people become close to them. So Riverstones was launched, and that was so exciting. And then I sent it to the retired librarian who helped me with a couple of research questions. And he said, it demands a sequel. And he was right. And I had always written Riverstones with 3 books in mind. And so I started writing Scattered Stones. Well, Scattered Stones was nothing like writing Riverstones. Scattered Stones was like that last kilometre back from trying to find the ghost town Bullendale. It was hard work, and I think it's because it was the building blocks of the plot have to be together, and it's like the middle part of the story, so that the 3rd book, the resolution and all the untying of threads, happen. And so because it was hard work, I had trouble letting it go. And I didn't think, I thought, maybe it's not as good as Riverstones because it was hard work. But fortunately, lots of people told me that they've enjoyed it even more, which I'm very relieved about. But every day, Terry asks me, are you there yet? Are you done yet? And it's kind of like, for any woman here that's ever been overdue with a pregnancy, it's like asking that kind of question. Are you still here? And he should be careful, because I've murdered a couple of people in the last couple of books, so he's living dangerously. But, so Scattered Stones, this has been a collective effort. my sister said, I think we can do this ourselves. Yay! Now I know why I paid someone a significant amount of money to publish it for me, because it was hard work. Amazon have templates, but when we'd get the proof back, which we had about 9 of, the margins would be too wide, the font was too small, the line spacing was too close, and the last time I rang her to say we need to change something, there was a lot of expletives on the phone, and I said, I'll email you then. But we got there, and the cover, I mean, everybody's been so generous with this. Marilyn did the proofreadings for nothing, which is a huge expense, and I'm just so grateful for that. And Tony, my friend Tony, volunteered his and Soraya's beautiful daughter Alina to do the graphic art work for the cover, and Alina, bless her heart, did it. And the photo here on the outside, my friend Kelly had taken a lot of photos of Central Otago and asked her to send me a bunch, and she's quite arty, and she sent me a whole lot of arty ones, but that little cottage resonated with me, and it was about a month later we discovered that little cottage is on a property called Hartley Homestead, and Hartley is my maiden name, so it was kind of like, oh, that's another meant to be moment. So I'm now currently writing the 3rd book in the series, which is called Sticks and Stones. And that's because there's a possible hanging in this story. And I hadn't decided whether to hang my character or not. And all the guys I spoke to about my dilemma said, hang him! And all the girls went, oh, not if he's a nice character. But I have decided what I'm doing with that character now. But I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to spoil it for you. I'm going to leave you hanging so you get the next book.
Well done.
But when I was 5 years old, I knew that I wanted to be a writer when I grew up. When I was 5 years old, I didn't think I wanted to be a marketer when I grow up. And so you really need to do that when you're self-publishing. With a traditional publisher, they take care of the printing costs, they take care of promotion. But self-publishing, you need to do that yourself. Well, I'm very fortunate in that I have who I call the South Island Business Development Manager. She's 92 and she lives in Invercargill. She's my mother, and nobody leaves her house without a book. She goes, Shelley's written this one, this one, this one, which one do you want? And so the podiatrist has got one, the gardener's got one, all of the choir have got one. So I have a solid fan base in Invercargill. But I need you guys too to help me promote the book. And so if you have read it and you liked it, please tell other people, help me get it out there, because it was a gift that was meant to be shared. And every time I go and see my accountant at the end of the financial year, he looks at me with what I would call sympathy in his eyes. And I'd like to see another expression. I'd like to see a glimmer of hope. You know, a flicker of surprise, whatever. Something other than sympathy. So that is pretty much what being a writer is like. You know, the New Zealand Society of Authors recently put out the study that they survey, and it was a report of what writers earn in New Zealand, and it averages out over all spectrums of writing at 15,000 per annum. So you can see we all need our day jobs, or we need very supportive friends and family. I have a day job, and I write every night between sort of 9:30, 10:30, sometimes 11. But I write because I love it, and it's my passion. And I probably would write if nobody ever read it. But to me, the best feeling ever is when somebody tells me that they loved the book and that they really enjoyed the story. So I want to thank you guys for all being a part of this journey. Some of you have had to listen to me for a while on, can't get the book finished or whatever, but you've all been really important in my life, and thank you so much for being here. If you have any questions, please ask, and enjoy the rest of the evening.
Yeah, so I had some few questions. I was wondering how you researched your characters, because I found them so realistic. And there was one scene where, is it Katie? No,
Kitty.
Kitty takes a letter and she's puts it in her petticoat, and I'm thinking, I wouldn't have thought of that because we don't have petticoats these days, and they certainly don't have any sort of place to put anything. So I was wondering, how did you research for this type of thing? Because there's so many things that really take you back.
Yeah, that was from reading other books at the library, really. So I found out a lot of interesting things. I've also found out, quite a few things about hanging. And not many people got hung in New Zealand, and it was only ever for murder. So yeah, it was more from reading. Lots and lots of reading.
The other question I had was, how do you write? So do you use Scrivener on a computer, or is it handwritten?
It's all my laptop. On my laptop, and I rewrite, and I go back and I write what I read what I've written the night before, and then rewrite that bit, and yeah, it takes a long time. And of course I'm very social as well, so working, social life, and trying to fit in writing, but it's fun. I love it.
Do you call your laptop anything in particular?
My boyfriend. Because I spend a lot of time with my laptop. Yes. And
How much time do you spend out on location researching everything?
oh, not enough. I'd love to go back to, I've been only twice into Skipper's Canyon. I'd like to go back, but I'm going to go down to Dunedin because the jail scene opens in Dunedin and Sticks and Stones, and a couple of the characters are moving to Riverton, so I have to do some research and go down. But actually I didn't mention why the titles. Riverstones to me spoke of gold in the river, being riverstones, and a current, because the things were moving in the family's life. And scattered stones, somebody thought I said shattered stones, but that was me at the end of it. Was because the family's feeling dispersed and they're not feeling as strong as they were. The stones mean to me legacy, lasting, memorial, and Sticks and Stones is because of the hanging. I kind of see it as that stick man figure.
Very clever.
Thank you.
So you are going to hang your character?
I'm not telling. I'm telling. Yes.
Did you find it hard writing for male characters, because obviously being female, and when you have to describe them and what they're up to and their masculine things that they're doing, is that
A
is it
little bit,
challenging
but I know
being
a few.
the opposite
I know a
sex?
few men. Not that kind of way. I tend to use.
Mother of son.
Well, I get ideas from just watching other people. Yeah, watching people. But I just really felt transported back to that time with my dream, and I could kind of see everybody and hear them. But yeah, Scattered Stones was more like walk along on the beach thinking, what are they doing? Talk to me, tell me what's going on here. I need to be in control. No.
Yes, family does have to watch out quite a lot, really. From the author's, license. Hey, Mike.
Yes.
Good thing you're not much of a reader.
And the Healy family name was because I had all of the characters' names, but I didn't know what their last name was, but it needed to be an Irish name. And after my father passed away, he'd been gone about 7 years when my mother met a lovely, proper, dapper little gentleman called Bernie Healy. And Bernie had mentioned at some stage that he had a bit of a rough side of the family that he didn't associate with. And I thought, I'll use that. So that's where the Healy name came from. And then when I met his nephew at the launch of Riverstones down in Invercargill, he said, do you know my family? And I said, no. He said, I think you've got my old aunt down pat. Her son always said, that old duck had a crow like a rooster.
You've written another book as well, though, haven't you?
A Payback.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Payback. Got to be New Zealand Post finalist in 2009. And that was
Yeah.
I used a bit of truth and in that one, and the main character, because I sent it to Scholastic and they didn't know what to do with it, so they sent it to Joy Cowley to read, like writing royalty, reading my first book. I was just like, wow. And she recommended that I give the main character a problem that other children could identify with. And I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm vertically challenged. And Mikey was vertically challenged. And I thought, well, lots of kids can identify with being short. So I wrote that into the story, and that worked really well. And I think that's why it got to where it got to.
However, some of the episodes in the book, which were based on real life, were thought of as too far-fetched to be actually real.
That's the funny bit, because I put in the Mr. Puniverse competition, and that was an actual thing, but of course people didn't think it was.
So when are you actually expecting to publish the third one?
Oh, are you there yet?
Good question.
Well, when I finish writing the third one, which hopefully will be in about a year's time, because I'm about 77,000 words into the first draft, and I know where we're going, so that's good. And I think it'll probably be a year. But after that, after I've published that, my goal is to write the 3 books into a TV series, and so then I'll work on a screenplay for that. And the business manager in the South Island has already been in touch with television, New Zealand, to ask how that has, what we have to do.
Wow.
I know.
Oh, we look forward to seeing that on TV. Has anyone else got some questions? Oh, thank you very much, Michelle. And everyone give it a hand. So, Michelle's going to be doing some book signings now, so if you'd like to purchase a book, we've got some for sale here, they're $29.99. And of course, help yourself to wine and nibbles and chat and mingle and stay as long as you like.
Thank you.
How are you? Good. Yeah. You look like you're in tears now.